Ursula von der Leyen's EU Commission has received its final approval by the European Parliament after weeks of scrutiny.
Albanian opposition lawmakers and supporters blocked the streets of Tirana, accusing the government of corruption and election manipulation.
Grieving father convinces Australian community and lawmakers to ban social media for children under 16, but not everyone believes it's the right move. US President Joe Biden said the deal brokered between Israel and Hezbollah that aims to achieve a 60-day ceasefire is designed to be a permanent one.
Ursula von der Leyen's new commission has received the approval of the European Parliament. The German politician's team received 370 votes, with 282 against and 36 abstentions. Among those who supported her were the European People's Party, the Social Democrats and Renew Europe. MEPs from the Greens and the European Conservatives and Reformists were split, while radical right, far right and far left groups voted against her.
We will work with all democratic, pro-European forces in this House, and as I've done in my first mandate, I will always work from the centre.
During the evaluations, all candidates were individually screened before they passed the test. However, several of them, such as Vice President Teresa Rivera, who was opposed by the Spanish People's Party, or the Hungarian Oliver Varhely, who was questioned by several parties, found themselves in the hot seat.
You have scrutinised every member of this college in the last week. You have tested their fitness for the jobs they will serve. I know this was not easy. But overcoming divisions and forging compromises is the hallmark of a vivid democracy.
The new EU executive will begin its term in office on the 1st of December.
Albanian opposition lawmakers and hundreds of their supporters blocked the main streets of Tirana, the capital, on Tuesday, accusing the government led by the Socialist Party of Prime Minister Edi Rama of corruption, manipulating elections and seizing the powers of the judiciary. They demand it to be replaced by a technocratic caretaker cabinet where experts rather than politicians make decisions until the 2025 parliamentary elections. Clashes broke out between protesters and anti-right police trying to clear the streets. The protest ended after 3 hours with the opposition leaders pledging to continue with rallies all around the country. The Conservative Democratic Party and its supporters have also been protesting the arrest of their leader, Sali Berisha, claiming the corruption charges are politically motivated.
Wayne Holsworth became an advocate for banning Australian children younger than 16 from social media. That is because last year his 17-year-old son Mac committed suicide after falling victim to an online sextortion scam. A 47-year-old man from Sydney, posing as an 18-year-old girl, demanded money for an intimate image that the boy had shared. Since then, the grieving father has taken his tragic story to schools in the country and warned students of the risks of social media.
I presented to now over 10,000 people, of which 3,000 are secondary school children. I asked them to put their hand up if they would support it. Yes, they support it. They're the kids that are supporting it. We can't rely on the tech giants to help. It's not in their interests. So we have to take control.
But not all parents, lawmakers or experts are convinced that banning young children from social media is the answer.
I understand both the limits of that particular policy and the expert evidence that is coming out from people who work in this space about the problems for young people being excluded from those spaces. I also think there's very significant privacy concerns for all Australians who may, in fact, be required to give up some of their privacy in pursuit of this particular policy.
Platforms such as X and Instagram announced that they find the ban problematic. Australia's House of Representatives on Wednesday voted overwhelmingly in favour of the ban, and the Senate is expected to make it law soon. Once it enters into force, even parental consent will not be able to override the ban.
The governing party in Georgia has picked a former footballer as its candidate for the country's new president. The Georgian Dream Party nominated Mikhail Kavilashvili, a 53-year-old former national team player and Premier League footballer, as its candidate for the country's largely ceremonial presidency. The nomination follows the party's controversial election victory, which sparked protest and led to a boycott of parliament by opposition parties. The opposition claims the election was rigged under Russian influence.
Russia launched almost 200 drones towards 17 regions in Ukraine in an overnight blitz, marking the record number of drones fired by Russia in a single attack. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that while most of the drones were shot down, the shelling damaged apartment buildings and critical infrastructure such as a national power grid.
Майже 200 російських дронів проти України за добу – це майже 200 доказів, що російські бажання вкрай далекі від будь-яких ідей про справжній мир.
In many regions, efforts are still underway to address the aftermath of the drone strikes. Zelensky also said a rescue operation was underway in the Sumy region after an attack on an auto repair shop killed 2 people. Meanwhile, in a rare official acknowledgement, Moscow said that long-range missiles launched by Ukraine damaged infrastructure and injured several servicemen in Russia's Kursk region. Speaker of the Russian State Duma, Vyacheslav Volodin, urged the West to refrain from escalating tensions as it could ultimately harm the citizens of Europe.
Надо прекращать создание напряжения и скатывание в пропасть, что происходит из-за действий и решений Байдена, Макрона, Шольца и им подобных.
Volodin also said that the new Oreshnik ballistic missile was necessary to protect Russian citizens.
French Prime Minister Michel Barnier might lose his seat due to a controversial budget move. He argues that 40 billion euro in spending cuts and 20 billion euro in tax hikes are needed to reduce the country's debt spiral, which is over double the EU limit. However, lawmakers from other parties have refused to back his measures, meaning Barnier would need to use a constitutional clause to forcibly pass it until December 21st. This could lead to a no-confidence vote, which left-wing politicians have threatened, and members of the far-right National Rally also warned they would back the vote unless budget changes were made. Marine Le Pen disagrees with the tax increase, but wants cuts to medical aid for migrants and bureaucracy.
US President Joe Biden said the deal brokered between Israel and Hezbollah that aims to achieve a 60-day ceasefire is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities.
Good afternoon. For the next 60 days, the Lebanese army and state security forces will deploy and take control of their own territory once again. Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon will not be allowed to be rebuilt. And over the next 60 days, Israel will gradually withdraw its remaining forces.
Biden thanked France's President Emmanuel Macron for his partnership in reaching the deal and said they would work together to provide assistance to ensure its successful implementation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that they would respond strongly to any violation of the proposed ceasefire deal.
אנחנו שומרים על חופש פעולה צבאי מלא. אם חיזבאללה יפר את ההסכם וינסה להתחמש, אנחנו נתקוף. אם הוא ינסה לחדש תשתיות טרור בסמוך לגבול, אנחנו נתקוף.
Shortly after Biden's announcement, an Israeli airstrike shook the Lebanese capital of Beirut, and at least 24 people were killed in strikes across the country in the day leading up to the deal. Hezbollah had also been firing rockets, triggering air raid sirens across the north of Israel. The agreement does not affect Israel's war in Gaza, but Biden expressed hope that the ceasefire would be a catalyst to also reach an agreement between Israel and Hamas.
Romania is reeling from the unexpected rise of far-right extremist Călin Georgescu, who won Sunday's first round of the presidential elections as an independent. His come-up went unnoticed by the political system, with his victory representing the first time a fringe candidate won a national election solely through a sophisticated media campaign. Georgescu rode a wave of public discontentment with the political establishment, combined with an intensive, years-long social media assault filled with anti-Western rhetoric.
He is selling an utopic story. He is selling a dream for conservative Romanians as an opposite to the classical politicians that are very transactional. We have now a TikTok messiah or something like that, very successful, and we are not sure if he will be able to win in the second round.
Georgescu captured the protest vote against the mainstream political parties and their economic performance, using a well-oiled social media machine, propagating extreme nationalist and pro-Russian messages to devout followers.
Chestiune foarte importante este ideea aceasta de viralizare, de propagare și de folosirea hashtag-urilor pentru asta, care presupune cumva niște efective de oameni, de data asta nu mai vorbesc de boți și de algoritmi, care sunt cumva extrem de activați, ca să spunem așa. Și discursul pseudo-mesianic al lui Călin Georgescu, cu modul în care s-a prezentat, a făcut să câștige mai degrabă adepți decât cum avem, poate, în alte părți, susținători raționali.
Bordering Ukraine and on NATO's eastern flank, Georgescu's statements have all the hallmarks of a hybrid war against the West, following the same narrative which can be seen in other European countries.